I used to sell my work at a really busy public market and talk to, hundreds of people a day and for many years, a decade. I talked to a lot of people who would come up, tourists from all over the world and people from Vancouver. And one of the first things that people always say to me in almost any environment when I tell them that I'm an artist is they sort of have this sort of soft glaze over, and it's a sadness. I didn't realize it right away, but it's a sadness. And there's this sort of whisper of like, oh, well, I wish I could be an artist, but yeah. I'm just no good, or I don't have that skill, and I talk about this a lot because it's the whole reason that I'm starting this work. Mm-hmm. That, to me, I believe that wish is actually creativity saying, hi, right here, mm-hmm. Let me out. But, and I'm not going to put a percentage on it because I have no idea. The vast majority of people that I come into contact with are of the belief that they are not creative. They could never be creative. They weren't born that way. They're just mathematical or scientific, or there's this sort of belief structure around creativity where certain people are excluded. And if we're saying that creativity is actually the intelligence that brings everything to life, how could anybody possibly be excluded? And imagine the kind of pain on a cellular level you must be experiencing to believe with your unconscious thoughts, even at that level, that you are not part of that. Like, because you talk about community being one of the cornerstones of creativity, believing that you don't belong to that community. I mean, that's why I say I feel like it's why we're glitching. It's why everything that's wrong is wrong. Mm-hmm. And so not that I want to spend too much time figuring out like, well, why did this happen? Because I feel like that's sort of a waste of time. But how is it happening so that we can stop it from happening? How is it that we come to believe that? And who's it serving? Who does that belief serve? Because, I'm of the belief that you don't believe something or do something unless you're getting something out of it. What are we getting out of this belief that we don't have access to creativity, some of us?
Well, I think that we are unfortunately, as human beings, and I don't want to spend a lot of time analyzing it either, I'd rather fix it.
Yeah, me too.
I think it happens partly because human beings, and this is really even the bigger question, sort of the way that many of us are brought up revolves around a scarcity economy instead of
abundance,
an economy of abundance. And I know sometimes those are trite phrases that people just throw around, but I think the other thing that human beings do, which is probably some leftover remnant of, the original human beings who had to compete to survive. Mm-hmm. I think that we're hardwired, unfortunately, sometimes to compete. And that's one of the things that makes some people want to claim it all for themselves. It's a scarcity mentality, like, well, if I don't get all this over here, I'll never have enough. When the fact is that there's plenty to go around on all kinds of levels, and people are talking about this globally all the time right now. Thank goodness. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I think that would help here, actually one of the ways we could fix this would be if we stopped putting such narrow parameters around what creativity is,